for myself, so I can choose, you know, what's next for me and not have somebody to choose for me or direct me to choose.
Well, I think, you know, on top of that, it's also figuring out how not to let logistics drive you down. And that is something that you have to deal with because, yes, workplaces are changing, but I mean, I recently heard a story on employers that provide on-site childcare, and it's only like less than 20% of employers offer that. You know, in the Bay Area, I only found a handful of examples, like Cliff Bar here in Emeryville has an on-site daycare, and because they have a female co-CEO who said, I want this because I like a working mom. And so, you know, and so you're right, I mean, you have to have a female leader who's going to understand that. So it's a matter of looking for a job where you're going to have that kind of environment, where you're, you know, maybe your boss is a man, but he understands, you know, work-life balance. I mean, these are very important things. And I don't think someone to tell you, they tell you, go out and get a job and look for the best job you can. And somebody told me once, go out and find the best editor you can. And that was really good advice because who you work for makes a huge difference in your life. And, you know, when I talk with female executives, one thing they said is find the right partner. Like who your partner is going to make a big difference as well. If that person is going to be willing to help you raise your children, and then you can do it. You know, it shouldn't just be just you. Because some women will say, well, you can have it all, but not all at once. But then, you know, that's also problematic, right? Like, why do you have to feel limited? But you also need to know, you know, how am I going to make this work and not go crazy and be able to sleep at night and still be the, you know, the leader, the mom, everything. So, yeah.
You know, I was going to address this at the end, but since you're focusing on the topic, I wanted to go to now. Because I know you're going to ask about, like, obstacles, and so I'm just going to talk about this now. Because one of the challenges, I think, of young women is, you know, we get so excited about a career path, and we talk about it, we'll monofocus on what am I going to do, what's my career, what's my legacy, and that becomes the consuming thing, and where am I going to go to grad school, whatever. The thing I would absolutely say to you all, and I'm 47 years old, and I did not learn this lesson when I was your age, that's why I'm sharing it now. You need to plan your life as well as your career. You need to plan your family as well as your career. You do need to decide if you want to have children. Because you have, and I'm not being like necessarily pro-mommy, I'm talking about being focused on life. What is your life going to look like? What does success mean to you? If there's things you want to do in your life, you need to plan them all. You know, same way you got to plan a vacation, you know, you need to plan. Do you want to go to grad school? What kind of career path do you want? Do you want to have a family? What kind of family? How many? Do you want kids? How many kids? Because you're going to work for 40 some odd years. You're going to change careers many times, but you have only a certain window if you want to have children. And I thought I could wait until I was on top and had done everything I wanted to do career-wise, and then someday, maybe when I was like 45, I'd get around to having kids because there's IVF, right? That's not necessarily true. So I'm just saying, look at your whole life, not just the career and leadership as the thing that drives you, because decisions impact so many parts of your life. Your life is holistic. Does that make sense? Okay, so I feel like I have to share that message because I was so career focused when I was your age. That's all I thought about. That's all I thought about, and everything else was just wait. Well, you know, biology doesn't wait. So, you know, you just need to try and plan your life as opposed to just your career. So I'll speak there.
So I have a few other questions, but I want to make sure we have an opportunity for anyone in the audience to ask any questions. Does anyone want to bring something up at this point? Okay, I'll just move on to my question.
Okay, all right, what I'm going to do is take people from the audience.
So in ICL we did interviews on women leaders that we knew were like and then we read essays and stuff like that. And one of the points that my interviewee brought up was the way you look, and she just kept talking about like we're mammals, we're visual creatures, like, and Cynthia talked about like how does it matter what you look like, but for her, she's like no, like when you're in an interview, like you need to look good, and like the idea that like women tend to have a fake that says sexualizing themselves, or like making themselves like look good the part. And I just wanted to know, when you guys all started, like, going into, like, interviewing, like, what did you think about? Because, like, now, I know, I mean, I obviously, like, I have, like, interview clothes in my closet, or, you know, like, that idea. But, like, it just really was an interesting, like, she was like, no, you need to look good. Like, and plus you are a woman, like, use that. And it was just very, like, what? But it was really...
Here's what I want you all to think about. As a brand coach, a personal brand coach, your branding, that's your packaging. You know, so you have to think about what does your package look like and what does your package say about you. So it's presence and presentation, you know, is really what's important. And so that's where you should really look at, do I look like the person that's the job that I'm going to go after? Do I look like this person who has this particular career plan? If I'm on the track to be a leader, am I representing myself as a leader in the environment that I'm going into? So I think that's what's really important, your presentation. And you know what's funny, I was talking to my husband, and this is real common, we get very lax and comfortable in the way we dress in certain environments, and then when it's time to switch those environments, we're like, okay, we think this works, and then he goes like, no, that doesn't work. So when I was talking to my husband, I said, I need to buy more speaker things, because I was trying all these clothes, and I said, is this like a speaker? Is like a speaker out there? Is this? And then my husband said, no, that's a going out with your husband outfit. I think it's cute. You know, I had to throw something back. I said, but I have a school neck on, and it was really cute dress. But that doesn't, people can't hear you know, when you're talking to them. So your audience needs to hear you. So I think it's important for you to identify your brand. What is it? And you have a brand, whether or not you claim it, you have one. So the question is what does my brand say about me when I walk in the door? Does my brand say that I'm open, that, you know, I'm excited to be here, and the conversation of things, does it represent the picture, you know, that I'm presenting? So, or sometimes you say things that people say, I can't believe that came out your mouth. That didn't even look like you. He's a bad person. You know, so I think it's really about the brand that you want to set for yourself as you plan your career and plan your life. In work, with your friends, with your family, what does that brand look like?
And are you serious or are you playing?
Sorry.
Yeah,
I think the messaging aspect is very important. Determining what is your message. Like for me, I'm a reporter, and you know, today is casual day, so that's why I'm casual. But you know, what I've learned is being a business reporter is like I have to look like I fit with these business people, even though I'm not a business person. I'm a journalist, right? And so you need to think about what's the message that you're trying to send out, that you're professional, that you're polished. And so it's not about fashion, it's not about like, oh, I love this color. I mean, yes, color is great. But, you know, like what is it that you're trying to say to whoever you're going to be or not? That you can take me seriously, especially as a young woman. I mean, frankly, like if you're dealing with your boss who's like 20, 30 years older than you, and, you know, you're dressing to go out after work or, you know, being fashionable, you know, your boss isn't necessarily thinking, oh, she's here to do the work. So I think that's very important to think about.
So do you think it changes? Like, do you think like different, like that idea of like who you are? I'm like my mom. Like she's like, you need to feel good in what you wear, but make sure that like you do dress for that job. And it was just like, and that's a very, but do you think that changes, like the different jobs?
Yeah, when I started my staffing company, Casual Corners was my favorite story. Some of them know that. They're kind of like, will they please come back? But, you know, when I first started my business, one of the things I felt like, because I was in San Francisco, I started my staffing company in 1998. So in a 5-mile radius, there were 240 staffing companies in a 5-mile radius. And I was probably the 4th African American. There were 3 other females and 1 male. And one was a black female. She was an international company, right? And none of those boutique local women. And so I felt like I needed to wear my suits, my skirts, my pantyhose, you know, my coordinated jacket, you know, conservative hair. I felt like I really needed to do that because I was stepping into a world that was not, you know, that was not open to minority, you know, owners, and what I did. And so I needed to play at the level that the players played. And then as I evolved in my career and I started to establish myself, got lots of awards, people knew who I was, then I started feeling like, okay, now I can call my own game shots. So now I can switch how I dress. And so then I went through a period where I'm like, I hate pantyhose. So I went through a period where I said, I will wear skirts with no pantyhose. And not because I'm trying to, I know. That would have been another, you know, but I worked out a lot, and I said, you know what, I want to wear nice skirts and my open-toe shoes, you know, with no hose, and I want to dress nice, and I want to walk in the room and still be myself. So I think it does shift as your life shifts and changes, as you move with your career plan, it does shift. And I think that's important in being able to know that at some point you really want to own your career, own your brand, and it is who you are. But I do have a pair of pantyhose just in case.
I was going to say, I'm somewhat conflicted about that, because in my 30s, I lost my hair. And I remember, so it's been 20 years. And so I remember when I was doing career transition and, you know, people were advising me and, you know, are you going to undo your hair? You know, and are you going to do this or that? And, you know, I have on my suit today, but I just feel like it's environment and where you're going makes a difference. So I want to just give a quick example. When I ran an organization, it was a reproductive justice organization. We were looking for an executive director. I was the political director. The candidate came in. She had worn outfit that she wore to a board interview. But when she came into our office, she was totally out of place. Okay? Because we were all dressed much differently. So I think it really is just do your homework, find out about what that organization's culture is as best you can, because you can overdress. Okay, you know, there's this. Sometimes if you go someplace with some diamonds or some gold and you know everything, off the magazine cover, you're not gonna get a job. So that's what you need to think about.
So that's a good transition.